Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to today's Sohbet with myself, Paul Salahuddin Armstrong, at the University of Birmingham's Multi-Faith Chaplaincy on this, the 16th of September 2024. I hope you are well wherever you are tuning into this from. And today I would like to discuss about the noble character of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, this is a huge topic, so there's only so much that I can cover in a small subject, but I hope to give you some idea and some examples of the Prophet Muhammad's noble character. I mean, when we expand on this, we realize that this offers a deep insight and into the unparalleled example of virtue and mercy and moral excellence of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Quran itself testifies to his noble character, where it says that indeed you are of noble character in Surah Al-Qalam 68:4. One of the main aspects of this was his mercy and compassion. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also calls the Prophet Muhammad in the Holy Quran that we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to all the worlds. Rahmatan lil alamin. Surah Al-Anbiya 21 to 107. And we discussed a story from the Sirah of the Prophet Muhammad that was written by Haji Amin Adil, based on Ottoman sources, just on Saturday, where we were discussing the kindness that the Prophet Muhammad showed to a deer. Prophet Muhammad was kind towards animals. He was kind towards children, especially. I mean, the Prophet would shorten his prayer if he heard a child crying to ease the mother's distress. This is reported in Sahih al-Bukhari, which shows his sensitivity even during an act of ibadah. And also, the Prophet Muhammad was not just merciful to his community or to children or to animals. He was also kind towards it was only the stump left of a tree. He was even kind to that. I just was reminded of this when it cried out to him after he no longer used it as a pulpit. But the Prophet Muhammad was also kind even to his enemies. After the conquests of Mecca, the Prophet could have sought revenge against all those who stood against him, against all those who had made his life trouble and all his supporters trouble. But instead, in that bloodless conquest of Mecca, the Prophet said to those who persecuted him that you go, for you are free. He forgave them. And to be honest, I don't think anyone here, especially myself, but I think anybody else listening as well, can really understand this act of forgiveness. Read about how horrible, how awful, how wicked these people had behaved towards the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions. How many times they tried to kill the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. How many times they tried to kill his companions. How many times they harassed the Sahaba and, tortured them and did horrible things to anyone who came to Islam. And yet, the Prophet Muhammad did not seek revenge for any of these things. When he came back to Mecca, he forgave them. I think all of us have had people that have done something to us that has harmed us or upset us or wronged us in some way. But none of those things, for most of us, there may be someone listening, forgive me if you have had really terrible things happen to you. But I think for most of people listening have not suffered in the way that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his Sahabas had suffered at the hands of those Quraysh and those who supported them. So really, almost impossible for us to understand the amount of forgiveness that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had in his heart, even for people who had behaved so wickedly towards him. And if anything is a proof of his prophethood, I mean, this surely must be one of the biggest ones, because this is not normal human behavior. Normal human beings do not behave in that way. Even when we try, it's like almost impossible. And not only forgiveness, but also patience in the face of hardship. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, endured these countless trials, from the persecution of the Quraysh to personal losses, and yet he always responded with patience and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises this quality of the Prophet ﷺ in the Holy Quran, where it says, "So be patient, O Muhammad, as were those of determination among the messengers." This is in Surah Al-Aqaf 46:35. And even for personal wrongs, wa alaikum assalam, even for personal wrongs, the Prophet's heart was filled with forgiveness. There was one famous account where a Bedouin had grabbed the cloak of the Prophet roughly and demanded charity, not asked, demanded charity after showing this immense disrespect towards the Prophet. Now, how would most of us behave if someone grabs us like that and pulls our coat or pulls our shirt and demands charity? Most people would be repulsed. But the Prophet ﷺ smiled and ordered that someone give that man something to eat, or something, I forget if it was something to eat, but it would to give him something, some act of charity. And then there's the Taif incident, where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he traveled to Taif just to call the people to Islam, whether they accept or whether they didn't. He's just calling them. He was not doing anything else, just inviting them to Islam. And yet, instead of simply even cursing him, they physically harmed him. They didn't just ignore him or even curse him. They threw stones at him that drew blood and injured the Prophet ﷺ. But did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ curse these people back? No. The Prophet ﷺ forgave them. Even when the angel Gabriel came to him and said, "If you wish, I could bring this mountain and crush these people for what they have done to you." And the Prophet ﷺ says, no, because from among their progeny, maybe people will be guided. So he forgave them and said, "Oh, Allah, guide these people, for indeed they do not know." So you see, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was immensely kind, immensely compassionate, immensely forgiving, in ways which even the best of us, we would struggle with. Really, we would struggle with. And subhanAllah, we are so lucky and fortunate to have the Prophet, peace be upon him, as our Prophet, the one who will intercede for those of us who remember him and try to live by his teachings of Islam, that he will intercede for us on the day of Qiyamah. And what an immense good fortune that is for us. And the least we can do within this holy month is to remember the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and how much he gave to us, how much he sacrificed for Islam so that other people can be guided, including us. And just immense forbearance and forgiveness and kindness that he always showed towards humanity and towards all creation. Truly, he was rahmatan lil alamin. He was a mercy to all of the worlds. May Allah bless his soul. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa salim. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you found that interesting and useful. I look forward to seeing you on Friday for my Friday reflections. Until then, I wish you all a very good evening if you're in the UK and wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.